As a former fashion writer for the Wall Street Journal, the impetus for Cheryl Tan to write her book A Tiger in the Kitchen was her being laid off from that very job. In between whipping up a dish of her mother's Kong Bak Pao, the New York-based writer speaks more about making that transition from fashion to food.
But when you started actually writing this book, you were laid off, right? So did you think that this was going to be a temporary thing and you were going to go back and find a job again?
I wasn't quite sure what to think. The book has a very funny genesis. The very first thing that inspired me to come back was my late grandmother's pineapple tarts. And it was something that I had really yearned and longed for in the US. And I was growing up here, I never wanted to learn how to cook, but I loved to eat her pineapple tarts. And I always assumed, okay, one day I'll ask her to teach me. But then when I was 11, she died. So as the years passed in the US and I started to think about home a lot more. And when I thought about home, I really thought about my grandmother's pineapple tarts. And so I knew my aunties were about to make pineapple tarts for Chinese New Year. They make 3,000 every Chinese New Year because people still ask for them. And so I said, okay, well, can I come back and learn? So I came back and learned, and it was such a great experience. And I had the tart recipe. I learned so much about my family. And I pitched, at the time I was working at the Wall Street Journal as a fashion writer. And so I said, well, I know I write about fashion, but there's a food story here that I'd love to do. So I pitched a story, I wrote it, and a book editor called me out of that. And the editor said, well, let's talk. I think there's a book here. I see there's Joy Luck Club meets Joy of Cooking. And I was like, okay. But so I remember we met and we talked, and I decided, it's the recession. It's like the worst possible time to ask for time off to research a book. I can't possibly do this book right now. So I had pretty much decided I couldn't do the book. I didn't have the time. And then literally 2 days later, my entire team was called into an office, and there was a stack of envelopes there. And my fashion group had basically been assembled at the height of luxury spending to cover, spending and fashion. And so we were all laid off. And I thought, well, okay, well, that's a sign. 2 days ago, I decided I couldn't do this book I really wanted to do, and now I can do it. So that kind of cleared the path.
Was it difficult actually making transition from fashion writing into food blogging and basically food writing, and now basically just an author and you're weaving stories?
Well, I always tell people, I went from covering an industry that's all about avoiding eating to one that's all about eating. Nice. So two very different things. But there's such colorful characters in both worlds. Yeah. People are very passionate about what they do. They're very proud of their work. So there are a lot of similarities as well. But a good story is a good story. So whether you find it in fashion or food, I've tried to treat it kind of the same way.
Cheryl is already working on her second book, which she is tight-lipped about, but did mention it would involve her long-time fascination with China. And although not explicitly about food, there will be aspects of it. In the next clip, Cheryl tells us how her family received her book, and her mother Cynthia rejoins us with the finished Kong Bak Pao.